Iran, AI, ICE, inflation, oil prices, food crisis, social unrest, just a few topics of interest, right? Going on today. I'm Roy Arthur, this is Unbelievable Reality, and I'm gonna be honest, it is an unbelievable reality, and it happens to be mine, and I believe it's yours too. I got a little bit of feedback on previous videos on the podcast that it would be better if I tried to stay a little bit more on topic. So today I've actually managed to take some notes to share some thoughts on some issues. There's absolutely no way in the course of a 30-minute podcast that you can delve deeply into any one particular issue. I'm going to try to offer some insights into a few issues that we're all dealing with right now that literally are unbelievable, and try to make sense of that, and also craft a narrative to where you'll see how one thing can relate to another, because I think I live by the principle that the sum of the parts equals the whole. And for the majority of us, we get lost in the parts. And so we're incapable of actually comprehending the whole. And that is not by accident. That's how we're educated. That's how we're raised. That's how our society wants us to behave. Because if you're stuck, trapped on a topic, trapped on a part, mega, ring anybody's bell? You want to talk about a dog whistle? Throw that out there. You get stuck on the part, you don't see the whole. Think about that, okay? Really think about that. Make yourself start understanding that the parts are all part of the whole. Before I get started, in every podcast, I like to start with a literary reference. Today, The Half Has Never Been Told. Our version of American history is varnished, whitewashed, curated, and fed to us in small bites in the way that we are supposed to believe. That doesn't make any of it true. I am a student of history. If you look at my library, I'm surrounded by historical novels, fact, fiction, all of it. I cannot get enough of it, specifically American Indian culture. I find it fascinating and heartbreaking that potentially the greatest genocide in the history of mankind that occurred on this continent is something that we don't even discuss. I think that moral stain on this United States of America is something that until we own up to it, we will never heal. That goes the same for slavery and racism. The half that's never been told is a factual, accurate explanation of how this country was built entirely from George Washington on, but going back literally to the Pilgrims in the Mayflower. This country was built on slavery. Slavery changed after the Civil War, but it never went away. It just shifted to sharecropping, to prisoner labor, etc., etc. Jim Crow laws. It never went away. It's still with us today because that's how capitalism works. Get it through your head. Capitalism survives on two tenets: exploitation and extraction. And one of the reasons why we're running into the end of the American empire and the late stage demise of capitalism is because there's so little left to extract. Think about it. especially in this country, we've passed so many environmental laws, which is why the Republicans have been up in arms for decades trying to overturn this legislation so they can get their hands on the land and extract the resources for the few, not for the good of the many, but for the few. And since that's almost impossible now, that's another reason why this administration currently exists. They promise to kick those doors down to their wealthy friends so they can extract more. In the meantime, the only thing that's left to capitalism is exploitation. Okay? And exploitation of the labor force. That would be you and me. And that's reflected in a great example is streaming. Let's use streaming as an example. When streaming first came on the scene, however long that was ago, a decade, 15 years, I mean, this is a new phenomenon, it was cheap. And it was cheap on purpose. So it would bring about the demise of cable TV and therefore create new market space. Now ask yourself, add up your fees, your monthly fees for Netflix, Paramount, pick a streaming service, ESPN, CNN, Fox, it doesn't matter. Every streaming service now is subscription based. If you add up all of the subscriptions that you're paying for on a monthly basis, I guarantee you're spending as much, if not more, than you were spending on basic cable and internet just 5 years ago. It's a guarantee. Do the fucking math. Anyway, exploitation. The half that's never been told is all about exploitation. And the millions of people that were enslaved to extract, to provide the income, the liquidity, the money for the creation and continued existence of these United States of America. This book, in addition to the other book over my shoulder, Howard Zinn's A People History of the United States, should be mandatory reading in every high school in the United States. It will never happen because it's counter to the narrative that the propagandists want us all to believe. The narrative that we're trapped in. I will just remind you, that narrative is false. It's a lie. This is a country that is built on lies. And until we own up to those lies, we're fucked. And that's just a fact. And to keep us from realizing the truth of those lies, what better way to do it than to divide? And that is the current mechanism that is allowing capitalism to continue to exploit. Because now they've got us fighting each other. And that's exactly what they fucking want. A disorganized population, a divided population will never rise in unity and cause revolution, peaceful or not. And that is an absolute fact. Look into your history. Whenever populations unite behind one common cause, the world changes. That's all I have to say on that subject. So, current events. Let's get going. First of all, Iran. The Iranian expedition, as Lord Trump has described it, pardon me, is going to go down in history, in the history of this country, as the biggest mistake ever. And is going to go down in the history of the country as a pivotal moment that actually caused destruction to the rest of the world. Here's some facts that people need to understand. For 40 years, I was around during the Iranian Revolution. I was old enough to remember it. I was old enough to remember Walter Cronkite on the news every night talking about day 187 of the hostage crisis in Iran because these radical Islamists have overtaken and overthrown the government, the puppet government of the Shah that we installed after we overthrew the democratically elected president of Iran in the early 50s so that we could keep exploiting their oil. Wonder of wonders that 20 years later the Iranian people had fucking enough and they went radical Islam, and they overthrew the government and installed the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was living a happy old age life in Paris at that time, causing unrest and discontent from afar. I was around during that period of time. Since then, Iran has been labeled the #1 source of terrorism in the world. That's a fucking lie. The #1 source of terrorism in the world is us. And that's a fucking truth. And with our partnership with the Israeli government, and I just pinged up on Palantir's web search, I'm going to talk about that next. I just went into a special file the minute I post this video. Be aware of everything you say and everything you record, because it's all now in our surveillance systems. But back to Iran. After the revolution, Ronald Reagan made a deal with the Ayatollah to get the hostages released before his inauguration or right after his inauguration, or that he was going to attack Iran. Iran at that time was in no position to defend itself. They made a deal. He got inaugurated. Lo and behold, right after that, the hostages were released. Reagan was hailed as the savior. Wow, how convenient was that? Since Reagan, 1983, 40 years, we could have invaded Iran. Every administration up until this one has known what a horrible decision that would be, because they were not coerced. Israel didn't have the stranglehold on us that it has today. Back then, it was building it, but they didn't have it. It was really only with the advent of Netanyahu that things took a really dark turn for our country. That's an entirely different podcast. And if I shoot that podcast, that puts me in personal danger. Disclaimer, I'm of sound mind and body. I love my life. I'm happy as shit. I love being a father. And there ain't fucking anything wrong with me. If all of a sudden I have a car accident, please look into it. Anyway, for 40 plus years, every administration has stayed out of Iran. During the Iraqi war, we knew that the Iranians were funding the opposition, and yet we did nothing. During the Afghanistan war, we knew what Iran was doing, but we did nothing. Why? Because we knew it was Vietnam Part 2, only worse. And every administration prior to this one had solid thinking, educated, experienced diplomats and officers in the army that all thought the same fucking thing. This invasion of Iran has been an absolute disaster. If they go one step farther and put boots on the ground, it will become our next Vietnam, and we will never get out of Iran, and Iran will break us as a country. If you have any wherewithal whatsoever, call your congressman, call your senator, scream at everybody you fucking know, including the mayor of your hometown. Because if you're like me, I have draftable age sons. And the last place I want to see them is in Iran fighting a holy war. Once again, that's another podcast, and I want to stay on topic. But keep that in mind. The reason we're in Iran all goes back to Project 2025 and the white supremacist Christian nationalist takeover of the American government. Look into it. It's not hard to figure out. This is a doomsday cult that wants to bring about the end of the world because they believe they're all going to get raptured and we're going to get fucked. I can't even go there. I don't do mythologies and I don't do fucking fiction. Suffice it to say, the Iranian blunder is going to haunt us for decades. It has destroyed our allies' relationships. It has destroyed our standing in the world. And worst of all, it has shown that even with all the trillions of dollars we've spent on defense, we're inept, we're unqualified, and our shit don't work. And that should make you very anxious tonight. Enough on Iran. AI. It's hard to decide whether Iran or AI is a bigger threat to the United States of America right now. I'm going to go with AI. Advancements in the models have exceeded expectations times 100. The exponential growth, which most people cannot understand. Let me give you a metaphor. It's ripples in a pond after you throw a stone. Now, these founders, Dmitry, Amendola from Anthropic, Sam Altman from OpenAI, Zuckerfucker, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these early venturers into the AI space are going to fail. The whole data center explosion is an absolute catastrophe waiting to happen. Because get your head around this. By the time they're built, the technology will have changed and they will be obsolete. This is a pipe dream, the way it is being gone about. However, compare this to the gold rush. You could use the California gold rush, you can use the Klondike gold rush, you can use the gold rush in the Dakotas after we lied to the Cheyenne and the Sioux that we'd never go into Hopsasapsa, the Black Hills, Mahopsasapsa. I know I didn't pronounce that correctly. Forgive me, indigenous viewers, because I'm just a white guy and I'm doing my best here. Every other gold rush in the world, including the internet boom in 2000, the founders never last. The guys that found the gold initially in the gold rushes never kept it. They just found it and they started digging. When the real gold was produced, that was when organized, competent industry came into the gold fields in California, bought out all of the independent miners, and starting using fire hoses to blow out hillsides and scoop up the gold in massive sluice boxes. The environmental damage is still visible to the naked eye in Northern California to this day. That's how it always works. That's how it always works. And this is no different than a gold rush. The founders of these companies now, in 3 years max, will be gone. New companies will replace them that are more efficient, that are more professional, that keep their fucking mouths shut, don't brag about their accomplishments, and get busy exploiting us. And this form of exploitation involves eradication. And if you don't see that coming, wake up. This whole pipe dream of universal income is never going to happen. The rich are never going to get back. And they don't care how many die or how many suffer. And I'm going to segue on that note because Gaza is an absolutely perfect example of this. Think about this. The entire world has watched the decimation of an entire society that they could have stopped, we could have stopped at any moment. And we all looked away. And we did nothing. And if that doesn't tell you about where we are as a species, if you're a parent, if your heart doesn't break over all those dead children, if it doesn't terrify you what that says about us, if it doesn't make you realize that we could easily be next and they would not care, they would be happy, because then there'd be more real estate. And this is fact, and we cannot deny it. So, AI right now, what is AI being used for right now? Remember the much hyped technology that was going to come in and cure cancer and find solutions for congestion in cities and alternative forms of transportation and grow crops faster and improve our lives and clean our air, and all of these promises for this new technology? Just get on board, get on board, get on board. Look at how easy it is to write a fucking email. What it's being used for right now is two things: surveillance and military. That's it. That's it. That's where all the money's coming from. That's where all the computing power's going. It's to surveil us and make our military more efficient and deadly. You don't hear shit about the latest cure for leukemia. Why? Because nobody's turning the fucking computing power to that. Because there's no money in it. Which takes us to our broken healthcare system. It's not healthcare, it's health extraction. They don't want you to get better because you don't pay them if you do. We pay $1,000 a month for health insurance because we're all terrified of getting sick, because it'll wipe us out financially, and they're counting on that. They're absolutely counting on that. No, AI is not here to help us, average people, the normal people, the people that just want to raise their families and live in a clean environment and drink clean water and eat healthy food. No, 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 no. That's not what it's for. Maybe sometime in an altruistic future that we do not currently inhabit, maybe that's what it will be used for. But right now, no. It's being used for oppression and elimination. Period, the end. And what should really, really, really scare the fuck out of you, if you're not already, they found that supposed downed airman in Iran by supposedly tracking his heartbeat through AI. One individual heartbeat out of 97 million in one country? Got a cramp in my hand and fear in my heart, because that kept me up all night. There's some grist for the mill in regards to AI. This will not end well. That's guaranteed. How do you protect yourself? That's beyond me. All these things I'm saying, these are my opinions. You go do your own research on finding out if they're fact or fiction. You know, this also brings me to another topic. You see how Iran connects to AI? And now let's talk about being parents. How does this all connect to raising children in today's world? I'm a dad. 4 times already, soon to be 5. Don't ask about it, I won't tell you. It's a lot. I'm having the time of my life, and I'm the most blessed human being I can think of. But how do we explain this to our kids? My youngest first family is in college. Where do I tell him to go to get his degree? In what? There's only going to be room, by the way, this is another AI business trick. Oh, everybody should go into the trades, become plumbers, electricians. It's fuck, how many of those do you think we need when we can't afford houses? Sit with it. But what direction do we send our children into? What do we do with those first graders, second graders, third graders, fourth graders that are being taught fiction, that are being taught principles that worked in the Industrial Revolution 100 years ago, 125 to be exact, longer, 150 years ago, when our current education system was crafted. How do we advise them? How do we direct them? How do we keep them safe? That, for me, is the scariest thing of all. I understand Arc of Life. If you don't understand Arc of Life, let me explain it to you. It works this way. You start here, you go up to there, and then you decline. That's the Arc of Life. In the middle, you have all your success, you have your children, you make the most money you're going to make, and then when you hit 55, 60, you begin declining. That's just fact. This is a fact that our baby boomers are desperate to change because they're terrified of dying, which is how we got fucking here in the first place. Now they're all becoming religious because they're hedging their bets. It's not real. It's not real belief. It's cover my ass in case I'm fucking wrong. And the younger people that are turning to religion right now are doing so because they're terrified. They can't make sense of any of this. It scares the shit out of them. So what do? They look to something else to believe in that it's going to protect them. And in monotheistic religions, that's after you're dead, is when the protection comes in. Beat it up. I don't like that model very much. I'd prefer to be protected while I'm alive. But unfortunately, Zeus no longer exists, according to our current mythologies. Neither does Apollo, Daphne, any of the above. I would really, really like to have a conversation with the great god Pan. Anyway, what do we tell our kids? How do we direct our children? We're watching their environment fall apart, die, biodiversity, die around us. We're powerless to stop it. What will we say a decade from now, 20 years from now, when our children look at us and say, why didn't you do something? Ask yourself that when you were too busy fighting over politics, pissing and moaning because your neighbor's fence is too fucking high, because they didn't water their lawn, because you can't afford a nicer car, because you want a Rolex, on and on and on, while you were doing all this nonsense. And the world was dying. What did you do? Did you stop consuming? Did you protest? Did you go to your city council meeting and say, no data fucking center in our backyard? No, we don't have the water. No, we don't have the electrical grid. Did you do that? Did you at least push back? Will you be able to look at your children with integrity and at least say that? There's some thoughts to ponder. Once again, I'm Roy Arthur. This is Unbelievable Reality. These are my opinions based on the best information, facts, and correspondence that I can glean. If you don't like it, well then don't fucking listen. If you do, step it up. Support, share, comment, become part of the team. Because this is your unbelievable reality too. You just might not know it yet.